I think that Black women should be allowed the full measure of our rage. I think it's harmful to everyone if we're sort of expected to hold all of that anger and there isn't a space to talk about it.
According to thenumbers.com, the movie Is God Is has grossed $4.6 million since its release, and it's staying at the average theater for about 2 weeks. The self-proclaimed Black female rage movie is a pet project of Alicia Harris, and she speaks of the reason she made the movie, her desire to express and show to the world why Black female rage exists, and hoping that the world would understand it and consume it, she made this project hers.
The rage that's simmering underneath for myself is rage with misogynoir. And if you don't know, that word is a portmanteau of the words misogyny and noir, so Black. So it's the unique intersection that Black women experience. And at that intersection, people can be quite dismissive of us and certainly of our anger. People just don't take it seriously, or we're just a stereotype, right? They really flatten it. They're not interested. They're not curious in any nuance and why a Black woman might be mad.
Because I'm not a movie maker per se, I'm not going to lecture Alicia Harris because she has made her own box office movie and she has every right to make the movie that she wants to make. But if she wants to appeal to a worldwide audience of other men and women, especially women that don't necessarily hate their men, you have to make a case for why they should identify with Black misogynoir, why they should feel a sense of rage against the men that they are living with. Because in the case that they don't have this rage, or they just see these men as the people that make it possible for them to live a certain life that they live, it's going to be very difficult for them to identify with this Black rage you're speaking about, especially when the rage is directed at a Black man who is the antagonist of the movie. Why would the average young lady who maybe thinks men look good when they lift weights, or they like the way men smell, why should they identify with this Black female rage against Black men?
And then there's also, I think, inside of our community, these politics of respectability, which exist for the sake of protecting us, right? But they dictate that what we should do is not move with anger, not be people who are loudly expressive with our anger because it is dangerous, right? So I know that those things are true. I have felt those things as a Black girl, Black woman. I know the rules. And I needed to break them because I think they're dehumanizing.
Here, I think, is a key point that Alicia Harris makes that is part of the psyche of many young ladies of the West, and it's one of the reasons why they have a very difficult time assimilating to cultures outside of the West. When she says that you have these systems that quote unquote protect women, but she feels that they dehumanize women and that she wants to break those systems. Well, in certain places you can do that, but we're seeing the effect of things like the Black church now, where it's pretty much an entertainment show, or just the Black family itself, where you've broken down the Black family. And so now you don't really have a family. You don't have a community very much. You don't have a church system. It's just all broken, and you have all the max freedoms that you want, but it comes at the cost of an unstructured Black community. And if you want to go somewhere else and recreate that, well, most people outside of the West aren't really in situations where you're allowed to do that. And so how is this Black rage, this Black female rage at Black men going to resonate with many young ladies across the planet? The truth of the matter is, I don't think it's really going to.
I think that Black women should be allowed the full measure of our rage. I think it's harmful to everyone if we're sort of expected to hold all of that anger and there isn't a space to talk about it. I really got free with this story. This was also me getting free as a storyteller. I wanted to give myself these two young women who were going scorched earth on a motherfucker who hurt them.
As a man, why are you short? Like, why are you under 6 feet tall? As a man, as a grown-ass man at that. Why?
Men argue day and night that women only bring one thing to the table. Yet, 8 out of 10 men are bad in bed. Awful, to say the least.
Listen, if I even get the slightest whiff that you fuck with a white bitch, I'm done. I'm cool. You don't gotta worry about me no more. I'm not competing with no white hoe. They willing to do whatever the fuck it takes, and I'm not. So, I'm hopping right the fuck out your life immediately.
It's pretty obvious these days that there's a very strong anti-male tint to Hollywood these days, looking at what's going on with the Disney franchise, the Marvel franchise, and just this overall kind of backlash at the fact that traditional male superheroes are now not being cast the same way. And I think it's even stronger inside the black community when you have these re-releases of The Color Purple and now Is God Is, where you essentially have a black male antagonist that's 100% evil, and the two strong black women are going to hunt him down and quote unquote make him dead. And I guess that's all well and fine for an audience of people that are looking for that kind of content. But again, who else is this going to resonate with? I mean, if your father is going out into the world and he's working his fingers to the bone so that your family can eat, are you going to see him in this light that Hollywood wants to paint your father in, where if he gets hurt, your family can't eat anymore? Or does your mother want to go and do that laborious job that your father's doing and come home under the same conditions? Because for many people across the planet, that's their actual reality. And again, it just doesn't resonate. So if you're trying to go from an environment where you are celebrating the patriarch of your family being painted in this light to one where the patriarch is the reason why you can eat, you're going to run into problems adjusting.
I moved to Japan almost 10 months ago, and I'm back in the Bay Area visiting for a wedding for a week. And I didn't realize how low subconsciously my self-esteem had gotten to in Japan until I got back to the Bay.
It's important for people to understand that when you're going to other cultures, especially cultures that are very old and have a long history, men and women have had distinct places in those cultures for hundreds, if not thousands of years. And so if you come with the idea that you want to set your own cultural norm, or you just want to break the rules, you're going to run into pushback, either soft or deliberate, simply because in societies that are older or closer to traditional, they're not going to really be open to even ideas that young ladies can openly disrespect men in a society where men make the society go and do the tough jobs that make things happen. If somewhere in you, you watch a movie like Is God Is and you think of, man, I would love the idea of hunting down my father and punishing him, you can't go many places where young ladies can agree with that simply because they need their fathers. And so you end up essentially having young ladies run into the difficulty of going to countries where young ladies are still appealing to men in a way that many young ladies in the West simply don't see a need to do anymore. And you run into soft difficulties like trying to fit in and not being able to do so.
Like in Japan, listen, I love Japan. It's a magical place. My life is great there, but I kind of forget what it's like to just feel beautiful and feel like I don't need to shrink myself or shrink my body. And I realize I'm like, oh my gosh, not that I'm necessarily the beauty standards, but like the beauty standards here in the Bay specifically, because it is so diverse. Like everyone is gorgeous here. I just feel like you see all kinds of body types, and I could just fully exist here and just feel beautiful. And I realized, I'm like, wow, why do I feel so good here?
What's interesting about the point of view that she's sharing is that I've seen black women or Jamaican women, women from Africa come to Asia, marry a man, have a family, and everything goes well. And there is a thing that they understand, which is you have to shrink yourself. That's the way Asia works. You don't get to come to Asia and be what you would be in the West, because that's not the way that women behave in Asia. And it's going to be many, many, many generations until women in Asia are going to be acting like women in America are acting now, if that ever happens. And so when she says the idea that she has to shrink herself, or she says that everyone is beautiful in all different shapes and sizes, well, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm saying it is what it is. If the beauty standard is 120 pounds and you are saying, I want to eat, but you're also saying that short men don't deserve to date, you should be 6 foot, you're a fish out of water. And so many of those ideas that are normal in the West, that you can pick on men that are not 6 feet tall, you can say that in the bedroom, it is your job to please me, or you can say that I want to eat whatever I want to eat and that all shapes and sizes are beautiful, or even if it's having a nose ring or multiple tattoos. It works in America, it works in the West, but it just doesn't travel to the rest of the world the same way as they hope.
Especially in the age of Ozempic and everyone looking like skeletons, or K-pop beauty standards where celebs are posting their how many kgs they weigh, and it's like nothing. I'm like, damn, I forgot that I love my body and I love the way that I look, and I really accept myself here and all of my different curves, and I don't need to shrink myself. So it was a really nice reminder, and I hope that I can like bring back this energy of just complete self-acceptance and not start to feel the need to like shrink myself when I go back to Japan in a few days.
If you come from a culture where you're taught never to shrink yourself, and that in all shapes and body sizes women are beautiful, and that what men want really isn't very important, better yet, you can watch movies like The Color Purple or Is God Is, and essentially say that the essential point of the movie is that the men in the movie are all hapless or they're evil, then it's going to be very difficult to go to a culture where the men are not just important and the men run the culture, but the women understand that if the men aren't there, the culture's not going to work. And thus, many young ladies appeal to what men see as attractive because that's the way that the society works. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but what I am saying is that if you're a young lady that watches and enjoys movies like Is God Is, the transition from that to going to a country where you're trying to find a way to express yourself is going to be a very difficult one, because young ladies don't really express themselves like that in Asia. Maybe there are a few young ladies that are beginning to do it, but the idea that you're going to go to a non-Western country and essentially rewrite their rules is a pipe dream, to be honest with you. Is God Is the kind of movie that can only be made in a certain culture and a certain climate that doesn't exist many places in the world. If a man has to essentially put his body on the line to protect his family, or to make sure that his family can eat, and those young ladies understand that the difference between their eating and being protected is their father and the men in their life, then they cannot identify with a young lady who's coming over essentially saying, we don't need men for anything, women can do it all by ourselves. They're going to look at that woman and say, I can't identify with you. And the truth of the matter is, I think many young ladies coming from that environment where you can hunt down your father because he's a terrible, evil person as entertainment are not going to be equipped to live in a society where essentially what men deem as beautiful, important, and sexy rules the day. And so they're going to end up being full of resentment. And the truth of the matter is that man hate and that male resentment, it just doesn't travel. Because truth be told, in other countries, women actually need their men. Thanks for watching. Let's subscribe, comment below. I'll catch you next video. Take care, guys.